Hi guys, so in today's video I am going to be talking about mediums. I am not going to go through each brand of mediums, but I am just going to go through a rundown of each type of medium, how you apply it, and what it's for. And these mediums are only heat set products. I will be doing a video in the future about air dry mediums. However, I did stop using air dry several years ago. So most of my air dry mediums and products I did give away to other artists that do use air dry. So I don't have a good amount of mediums here to demonstrate with. So I am going to wait until I can buy some more heat set mediums, air dry mediums, and go over those with you. So before I get into actual mediums, I'm going to talk about the first thing that you are going to need, and that is thinner. There are several different kinds of thinners. The two most common ones are Mona Lisa paint thinner, which is odorless mineral spirits, or Gamsol, which is also odorless mineral spirits. The difference between these two, Mona Lisa has a medium amount of oil, and Gamsol has a much higher concentration of oil. And oil concentration is important because it affects your work time. My favorite brand that I use is like the cheapest kind you can get. It's Clean Strip Odorless Mineral Spirits. This has the lowest amount of oil, so it gives you the least amount of work time. It flashes off very quickly, which I like because I am a quicker painter and I throw my parts in the oven right when I'm done painting. I don't wait for them to flash off. So this helps avoid any type of like smearing or having to wait a few minutes before you put it into the oven. Mona Lisa, like I said, has a medium amount of oil. This is great for new people that need a few, some extra minutes when they are painting. Flash time is usually about, I would say, a little under 5 minutes or so. But this is the one that most people recommend to new artists, and it does give you plenty work time. It is a good product. I personally just don't like it, like I said, because it does give you longer work time, so it doesn't flash off as quickly. Gamsol, again, has the highest oil content, which means that it takes the longest to flash off. Gamsol, because of the higher oil content, it is also really great if you are using flesh colors or colors with a lot of white in them. That extra oil in Gamsol can really help prevent a little bit of chalkiness. This is definitely the go-to for people that do darker skin tones. It can also, the extra oil helps from becoming muddy. And when you are doing blending with darker skin tones, the extra oil helps with that also. Okay, so those are thinners that you're going to use. And now I'm going to talk about some products that you would use with your thinners, which will be linseed oil. Mona Lisa makes the linseed oil. Also, Winsor & Newton makes a linseed oil. I have used both. They're pretty much exactly the same. They are both yellow. They look exactly the same. Linseed oil we used to use all the time, pretty much in every single paint mix. Some people use linseed oil instead of mineral spirits. There is a risk if you use too much linseed oil that your work can turn yellow over time. I have personally never seen this happen, but I have heard of it happening. So that is something that you would want to be mindful about. And there are other products now you can use instead of linseed oil so that you don't have to worry about, even if it's like a remote risk, you don't have to worry about that. The reasons that you would add linseed oil is just adding extra oil to your mix to prevent chalkiness if you're using any colors with white in them, flesh tones. Also, the same how I was talking about with the higher oil content in Gamsol. If you are doing darker skin tones, adding the extra oil will give you extra work time, and it'll make everything blend easier and prevent your darker tones from getting muddy. If you are just doing a regular Caucasian skin tone, you're not using flesh tones, you're using regular paint colors and building up your colors that way, you wouldn't really need these. And with those, I will segue into thinning medium and thinning oil. This Exodus thinning oil is the only brand so far of thinning oil. I'm sure maybe other brands will follow. But this stuff is really great. It is basically kind of the same as linseed oil in some ways as far as what you could use it for, but it has additional really great uses too. Linseed or thinning oil is the active ingredient in thinning medium without the extra products that make it thicker. So if you are using white or flesh tones or painting darker skin tones, this will help prevent chalkiness or muddiness. Like with the linseed oil, I can't remember if I just said this, with the linseed oil, you would only add like 1 drop to your paint mix. You need a very small amount. This thinning oil, you can just add a drop or 2 to help prevent chalkiness or muddiness. If you like paint that is a little bit thicker, you can use this instead of regular thinner if you want to. I did, when I was testing this product, I painted an entire baby using it like that, and it came out great. I really liked this product a lot. You can also use it as a primer, which I did on one of my kits that was having some problems taking paint. You can also, I'll go into thinning medium, but so you can use it the same way as thinning medium. This one, I will say, when using as a primer, it had a lot less texture, which I really enjoyed because while the purpose of a primer is to have some tooth if you're having problems with a kit not taking paint, then I don't like using primer because it gives me not a completely smooth surface to start with. So it makes my paint look imperfect. Later on, you'll get little areas of stuck paint and such. Even if you clean everything out really well, that can still happen. So this has no texture at all, but it did still help with the paint inhibition issues I was having. They do have instructions. This one is really small. Let me look at this bottle. Yeah, it basically says don't mix with water, don't mix with acrylics. Again, this is a heat set product. You can mix it, like I said, with paint or use it on its own for other reasons. So thinning medium is like that a lot, basically. But the consistency is quite a bit different. Let me just grab some of these little popsicle sticks here. So thinning medium is paint without the pigment. So it is thinner, but it is not like this. This is like the consistency of an extra light virgin olive oil or something. Or like it's thinner than baby oil, but it is thicker than water. Thinning medium, you can tell it is a bit thicker. You can add it to your paint. I'll just kind of demonstrate right here. This is what most people would use this for. You can see my paint mix right here, how watery it is. You can add a little bit of your thinning medium to your paint, and you can see how transparent it makes it, but it is not watery. It is still, it's not a solid, but it's a nice smooth consistency. When you would use this, or I should say when I use thinning medium, I use it in a couple of my mixes. I use it in my vein mixture, And I do that because it is easier for me to apply and pounce veins if it stays where I put it and there's no paint dripping off or issues like that. I can also have the same consistency, but have many different levels of translucency. If I want it darker, I just add more pigment. If I want it lighter, I add less pigment, but the consistency is exactly the same. A lot of people really love this for creases. You don't have the same issues with paint pooling. A lot of people also really like it for lips or blushing. There's a reason I don't personally use it for lips and blushing, and that is a very long time ago. I was using thinning medium for blushing, and it removed paint from my cheek, from the cheek of the baby. This is something that I have heard from a lot of different artists that have had this happen. So I do not use thinning medium over large areas of painted baby. But I do use it, like I said, I mix it with my Milia to get a nice Milia mix consistency. And I do mix it with my vein mix. Anytime you want paint just a little bit thicker, maybe you want it to glide a little bit smoother, thinning medium is great. You can also use thinning medium if you have a small area that's not wanting to take paint. Say that you have a toe or fingertip where paint is just not staying on, you're baking it and it looks like it's rubbed off, it's not staying on. You can just pounce a tiny bit of thinning medium over that area and it will just give you a little bit of grip there and help your paint adhere. It does not have a gritty texture. It cures. Most of the brands are the same, but Genesis cures pretty shiny. There are some other brands that are not shiny when they cure. But what you are going to want in a thinning medium is you want it to be clear. You don't want it to change your paint color. As you saw when I put this in, it's the same color. The transparency is just different. This one, for instance, was an ultramarine blue. I added a thinning medium to it that is opaque and it turned it to like a phthalo blue. So that is something to keep in mind when you're looking at thinning mediums. But besides if they're opaque or clear, all the brands it's the same purpose and you use them the same way. Okay, let's see what's next. I guess I'll talk about this one really quickly. This is Shelley Marie Heat Set Agent. You can get this at McPherson's, is the only place that sells it. Shelley Marie developed it. This came out before the Exodus line. I think the biggest reason that this was created and made was when Genesis put out their new formula. It had different curing times, even at the different temperatures. Sorry, it did not have times. It had different curing temperatures than the original formula Genesis and different than all of the other new heat set brands. So this was an agent that you could add to your new formula Genesis that made it cure at the same time. I have heard that it makes the new formula Genesis matte actually cure matte because the new formula is very shiny. I have tested this a lot. I personally haven't experienced that effect. I did mix it with new formula Genesis matte. It did make it cure at the correct temperature, but it was still shiny. It was not matte. You can also add this agent to acrylic paint, I do believe, to make it easier to bake. I'm not going to get too much into acrylics. There are plenty of acrylics that you can bake no problem anyways, but this was just like an extra little additive to help make new formula Genesis work the same way as original formula Genesis. It can also be used as a primer the same way thinning medium can, or the thinning oil. If you have a kit that doesn't want to take paint, you can pounce this on and bake it, and it'll give you some extra tooth and help with adherence issues. There are probably other uses for this, but those are just the basics. All right, what are we going to do next? Let's do Authentic Reborn next. Okay, so Authentic Reborn, I don't think they're still in business, but they probably do still have stock of their stuff. I know McPherson sells Authentic Reborn. Irresistible's might. I can't remember. I'll look it up and put it in the description of this video. So Authentic Reborn is a brand. What it is, they sell colors and mediums, but what it is it is Genesis paint that was pre-mixed with mediums. So Authentic Reborn paint colors, I think I have some here actually that I will just show really quickly. All right, sorry about that. And I know this is a little sidetrack, but I have never talked about Authentic Reborn, so people that might want to know the difference. So this mix right here is Authentic Reborn Sweetheart Rose Lips. All this was a regular pre-mixed color from Genesis that they added thinning medium to. So these are all their colors are just Genesis with thinning medium. So back to their colors. This is their, to their mediums. This is their Clear Coat Matte Sealer. This can be used as a top coat. It is usually runnier than this. My jars are several years old, so they have started to dry out. But this is basically like a matte varnish mixed with thinning medium, I believe. It does give like a nice semi-matte, I will call it, finish. It's not ultra matte like Genesis because it does have medium added to it. But the first thing that I thought of when I ran out of Genesis matte originally was this product. I bought a whole bunch of it, and it works the same way that a final top coat would. It's just not exactly as matte as straight Genesis matte varnish. Okay, this is their 3D texture medium. This one I believe is thick medium mixed with thinner. You could see it is not quite thick like thick medium is, which I'll show you in a minute. It does have whatever they use to thin it, probably also thinning medium. This just gave a little bit of skin texture. Personally, I don't find this product gives great skin texture because of the thinning medium that they do mix with it. It's not going to give you a pronounced skin texture, but it would give you about the same level of skin texture as if you used straight varnish and added just a touch of thinning medium. It's going to give you a really nice little subtle texture. This one does cure very shiny, so you would want to matte over it. All right, while we're talking about textures, let's move over to thick medium. So this is original Genesis formula thick medium. You can see it is super, super thick. It is pretty much like a solid. You can like stir it up. It's not like a hard solid, but it's a solid. The things that I use, I actually use this a lot. This is the most common medium that I'm personally using. If any of you guys have original formula Genesis thick medium that you don't want, hit me up. Or original formula Genesis matte varnish, either one I will buy always. So this though, I use, that has a lot of uses. It is basically anytime you want something super thick. I'm not going to demonstrate with this because you can see how little I have left. But anytime you want a more solid paint surface, if you are doing pimples, this is great. If you are doing milk blisters, I use thick medium generally. Sometimes I'll use satin varnish, only lately because I'm low on this, but my go-to is definitely thick medium. You can just put a little blob on the top of the lip over your blister painting, and it gives a perfectly 100% transparent, true looking blister. You can also use it to paint hair strands. This is what I use to create my 3D textured hair strands, which I'll show you real quick. All right, I'll show you on Pickle. Hopefully you can see these raised 3D texture hair strands. Those I usually do with thick medium. If I'm running really low on thick medium, I'll sometimes use varnish, but you get the absolute best results for hair strands with thick medium. Again, it's one of those things, if you're using it for a milk blister, you might not care if it is transparent or not. But like when using it for hair strands, have tried like all the other new brands. One issue that I did have with most of the other new brands of heat set thick medium was that either they weren't very thick or that they cured opaque. So if you're using it for 3D texture strands, making sure that it's a clear product is very, very important. If you're using it for other stuff, like I said, like milk blisters or pimples or something, if it's an opaque finish, that's totally fine. It's going to work great for you. I also use this for heavy pronounced texture. I don't have a doll right here to show you where I did heavy texture. But I used to texture all of my dolls with straight thick medium because I love very heavy pronounced texture. Now I reserve this pretty much for just the nose area. I do most of my texture now with just varnish because I am almost out of thick. But if you can also mix this with like a matte varnish if you want and get really great texture. Like there is just no texture comparison with thick medium. It's a really great product. If you have it and you haven't used it because you're not sure what to use it for, I would definitely play around with it. You can also, if you're trying to do hair strands, you can add pigment to it if you want to and do colored 3D hair strands. You know, anything that you want raised or visible, more of a molded look versus a flat pounced look, this is really, really great for. You can also, if you have an abundance of this, if you have paint, say that you want a thinning medium consistency, but you don't have thinning medium, but you happen to have thick medium, you can use a little bit of thick medium in your paint mix and it will thicken it up. Like you don't have to just use it straight. You can add it to your paint to get a different consistency. And paint consistencies, you know, translucency is one thing. You need your work to be translucent, but consistency is 100% personal preference. Like maybe someone was painting with air dry before where they're used to using a lot of mediums, and air dry paint is a lot thicker. You don't have necessarily a complete water consistency when you're using mediums. It gets more to like this kind of thinning medium consistency, and that's what you're used to. You can absolutely use these products to thicken your paint to get it to the consistency that you like and that you feel comfortable with. All right, so as far as skin texture, this one is Satin Tex by Exodus. There are other brand names that carry it, and they call them all sorts of different things, but they will have texture in the name. They are pretty much like the same purpose as this texture medium here. I'll just demonstrate with Exodus. It is a little bit opaque, just like the Authentic Reborn. It is not thick like thick medium is, but it will have a little bit more texture than their regular varnishes. It is likely that it is some thick medium mixed with some varnish. You can also use it as a final layer. However, I will say this one especially cures pretty shiny. It is definitely a satin, so you wouldn't want this to be your final layer. But you could definitely use this to pounce texture on with a Torn Cosmetic Wedge or craft sponge, however you do your texture. And this will just give you some more texture than just using straight varnish. Okay, this is Dewy Skin Medium. This brand is iArt Reborn, and I believe I got this from McPherson's. Again, I'm gonna have to check. I'm pretty sure that I got it from McPherson's. Dewy Skin is not quite as satin as a satin varnish, but it does have some sheen. You would want to use this product. You can see it's kind of thick. It leaves a really awesome texture actually, but it is shiny. You would use this product to get like kind of a glowy, a dewy skin look. On, you know, the face, the nose, any areas that you want there to be like a natural skin oil look. Like I said, this does have really great texture. You can apply it, like pounce it on with a brush for texture. You can put it on a torn cosmetic wedge and pounce it on. When I use this product, I pretty much use it in areas that I would normally use like a satin varnish or something for a natural sheen. Those areas that I personally use it for are right here in the ears, where it would be a little bit oily, in the corner of the eyes, sometimes a bit on the eyelids. And this actually has a very, very nice finish for the lips too. It's not like a high gloss. It is just that nice little sheen that does make really nice, natural, shiny looking lips. Okay, then we will talk about glazing gel. Glazing gel has pretty much no texture. It cures to not a high gloss finish, but it will have more shine than like a dewy skin or a satin. The areas that I use glazing gel for would be pretty much like I just said, the same areas that I would use satin. Corner of the eyes, ears. Sometimes glazing gel is a little bit too shiny. So you can, you know, put it on, let it air dry for a couple minutes, and then pounce it with a wedge, and that will help matte it down a tiny bit. It can get shiny. This product though, you can use as like a finish for areas that you want shinier, but you can also use it with paint. If you want like a really smooth glide on your paint, if you're doing lips or something and you're kind of struggling, you know, maybe you don't have thinning medium. If you have glazing gel, you can mix paint in it just like you would with the thinning medium, and it'll give you a really nice glide and a more shiny finish. The last one is going to be gloss medium. All of the brands probably call it something slightly different. There's some that are high gloss, regular gloss, medium gloss, but gloss is all the same pretty much. Like as far as it is gloss, it's shiny. The consistency is thinner than like a matte or a satin would be. You can't really get texture with gloss. Because it doesn't have matting agent, it feels very, very smooth. It'll give you kind of like a glass-like feeling. The only circumstances I personally use gloss, like I rarely ever use gloss. If I want any shine on my nails, I will always use a satin varnish or sometimes a glazing gel that's been diluted a little bit with thinner to make it less shiny. Like the nails, I want a natural little sheen. I don't want them looking like they came from the salon. I would use it on like an open mouth, inside the mouth. I would use it around the nose if I was trying to get like, you probably see a lot of people that gloss like inside the nose. I don't like it. It kills realism for me. When I look in the mirror or look at babies that I know, the only time inside of their nose is shining is when they're sick. And that is personal preference. Some people like that look. If you like it, you go for it. But gloss, if you do want that runny nose look, you can absolutely use it down here. If you want it to look like drool, it works fantastic for that. If you want tears, you can use it there. It gives a very wet look. It's pretty much like the equivalent of like an Eileen's paper glaze that people used to use. It is a glaze. It's a high gloss. You wouldn't really use it in normal painting if you're going for realism. But there are a couple circumstances that it would be helpful. Like I said, runny nose, saliva, tears, that kind of stuff. Then a gloss is fantastic. All right, guys, I think that is it for mediums. If you guys have any questions, any heat set mediums that I left out, let me know. Like I said, I am planning on doing an air dry medium set video, but I do need to buy or get somehow. If you guys have stuff you don't use, if you want to donate it for my video, contact me and I'll give you my address to send it. But I do need to get more air dry mediums so that I can demonstrate them in a video. I don't want to, I want to be able to show you guys what they look like and how you use them. But that will be in the works. If you are still here at the end, thank you so much for your support. You can continue supporting me by subscribing, by liking my videos. That really helps support me so that I'm able to create more content for you guys. I also have channel memberships, and the link is in the description to sign up. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one.